Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Film Ignite podcast. For all things film and all things TV, this is the place to be. In today's episode, we are taking a deep dive into the extremely divisive film by Christopher Nolan, Tenet. This episode will contain spoilers. Where can I even begin with this movie? I was absolutely thrilled when I heard that Nolan was making a new movie because it meant that it was the first Nolan movie I would be able to see in theaters. Having not seen any previous Nolan films in theaters, you could say I was more than excited. In January of 2020, during a showing of The Gentleman, I saw the first teaser trailer and it looked fantastic. Not too much was given away, but the music was pumping, the visuals were immaculate, and I was hooked. Fast forward months later, and we're in a global pandemic, and movie theaters are shut down for the unforeseeable future. Needless to say, myself, along with hundreds of thousands of others, were quite upset about this, and it looked like I might never get to see a Nolan film in cinemas. After months of constant battling with studios and executives, and 3 film delays, Tenet was finally released in cinemas around August of 2020. There were some theaters open around me, but we were too deep into the pandemic to feel safe going back, so we sadly had to give up on the opportunity to see it in theaters. Instead, we waited for the digital release on Christmas and watched it on Christmas Day. This is the film I had been anticipating for nearly a year. I had managed to avoid any plot details, set images, or trailers, besides the teaser I saw back in January. So there I was in the seat, ready to experience the movie I had been so eagerly waiting for the past 12 months. So, how was Tenet? It was everything I could have possibly asked for and more. On first viewing, I absolutely loved this movie. From the first minutes, you were thrown into exhilarating and heart-pumping action scenes, followed by sleek spy action, followed by inverse car chases, inverse fight scenes, inverse war battles. I could go on and on. Simply put, this movie blew my mind. I might have a hard time describing this to people, but this movie for me might be what Inception was to some people. Now, I can already hear the comments about how Inception is a way better movie than Tenet. Well, I guess we've gone far enough that it's time to address the issues here. The biggest issue of many that most people have with Tenet is that the story is too complicated and they do not care about the characters. Now, I wholeheartedly disagree with at least some of this statement. Is the story hard to follow at first? Sure, I agree. There are so many exposition scenes that you could start not to follow whose name is who and what's really going on. There's an entire sequence where the protagonist is talking to Michael Caine, and I truly did not understand a thing the first time I saw that scene. Now, this movie doesn't do a great job of filling you in a whole lot, and that is going to turn lots of people away. I have to wholeheartedly disagree that it's hard to care about any of the characters in this movie, though. The bond that the protagonist and Neil have is so well conceived and shown throughout the movie that it even makes the ending scene that much more powerful in my opinion. These guys have been through thick and thin together, and the speech Neil gives about how, for him, it's the end of a beautiful friendship, but for the protagonist, it's just the beginning. It's a crazy metaphor for what's literally happening in the movie, but also the movie itself. Here's the thing, for me, all movies are different. There are objectives that each film is trying to achieve or messages it's trying to get across. With Tenet, you cannot objectively look at the movie and say it failed in telling a compelling story because you didn't understand the characters or you didn't understand the plot. Just because the plot may have been a bit confusing or you didn't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't have a plot, and not understanding the plot doesn't make it a bad movie. But I think the issue here is people are missing the point of Tenet. The plot of Tenet is secondary to the concepts and ideas that are visually being presented here. The entire concept of time inversion in itself makes for such a compelling and interesting story. I can appreciate Tenet for what it is, a technical masterpiece that makes great use of its high concept premise. The movie promises us a world where time can be inverted, and it delivers on that premise in so many ways. From a technical standpoint, this movie is fantastic. Each shot is color graded so intricately, giving it such a modern, sleek look that makes each frame pop with color. The scenes within the red room and the blue room are particularly breathtaking. The action scenes are filmed so well in this movie. The fight scenes are choreographed perfectly. The car chases are exhilarating and fun to watch, all the while blowing your mind with what you're seeing. The first time the protagonist fights the inverted man in the Freeport was so cool. Like, come on. The setup to the scene where we see the bullet holes slowly filling themselves in, and he says the line, "It hasn't happened yet," is such a great setup for a fantastic scene. The first time you see it, it's kind of terrifying, honestly. He's like fighting some sort of alien that's contorting backwards, moving in weird ways, wearing this like soldier outfit. And watching someone fight someone who is moving backwards through time is mind-boggling. Seeing some of the behind-the-scenes stunt work with John David Washington is even cooler because it shows that not every scene was just played in reverse. The actors actually learned how to fight and move like they were inverted. It's absolutely insane. The car chase scene from the middle of the movie is also fantastically shot and exhilarating to watch. All starting from the fire truck heist where they hijack the fire truck, and then you see the cracked mirror, then they get in a car chase with Sator. It's all so well done, and the best part is when we get the image of the car, which is already crashed, coming back up again and flipping back in reverse. It's fantastic. Everything changes once we get to the red room and the blue room. This is the point in the movie where it went from good to epic. Like, seriously, I was already loving this movie, but from this point forward, this movie becomes a whole different beast. Because at this point in the movie, the protagonist inverts himself in order to reverse his mistake of telling Sator where the algorithm is, and the entire rest of the movie moves backwards through time. So essentially, the movie starts at the Opera House, and the halfway point of the movie is also the halfway point in the world of the movie, because as we move closer to the end of the movie, we are heading back towards the beginning, as the final scene of this movie takes place at the exact same time as the Opera House scene. Just think about that for a second. That's insane. The cherry on top of this movie would have been to have the final scene actually take place at the Opera House to make it so, like a symmetrical movie experience, but the ending we got was great regardless. The reveal that the man that the protagonist was fighting in the Freeport was him all along is absolutely brilliant and blew my mind, and the way it's executed so you figure out just before it happens is amazing. A lot of people seem to have saw this twist coming, but I was so intrigued by the technical mastery on screen along with trying to piece together the plot that I wasn't able to catch that one from a mile away. Another holy crap moment was when we realized that the car that flipped in front of them during the car chase was actually the protagonist who had already crashed in inverted time, and that was also mind-blowing to me. It actually got an audible reaction out of me during the first viewing. That's how crazy and mind-blowing it was to me. Not to mention the amazing set pieces, the opening Opera House siege, the Freeport mission trying to steal the painting, which begins with a 747 crashing into the airport building, an entire sailboat sequence with breathtaking imagery, and a final war zone battle that takes place half inverted, half not. Now, the final battle of this movie is epic. There's truly not any other words I could use to describe it. Just the fact that Nolan was able to think of some of this stuff blows my mind. Having a mission where one team goes inverted and the other not, so the other team moving forward can follow the footsteps of the inverted team is genius and works so well visually. One of the coolest shots I've ever seen in a movie is when, at the 5-minute mark of the 10-minute mission, each team shoots a missile at an abandoned building, so while one team blows up the top half, the other team blows up the bottom half, and it's so amazing to watch. I don't even know how they pulled that off or how they even thought about it, but it's fantastic. A lot of what I talked about so far really is just me gushing about the experience that Tenet gave me. In my eyes, film is a medium on 3 planes. You've got audio, you've got visual, and you've got the deeper meanings, the story, and plot and themes. Tenet delivers on all 3 in my eyes, and while you might disagree that there's a coherent story worth telling here, I still think the use and concepts of time in this film are just so interesting. With a concept this wild, it's hard to even scratch the surface of what's possible within this world and picking the right story to tell. I feel like Nolan had so many wild sequences and ideas he wanted to put on film, but didn't know how, so he crafted a story around them, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe he did bite off more than he could chew with such a wild and insane concept that if maybe he perfected a different type of story with better character investment, this movie could have become an all-time classic like Inception. It sucks that Tenet was received the way it was by audiences particularly, but I'm glad Nolan got to bring his insane vision to life on the big screen. Listen, you want emotional investment? Go watch Interstellar. It's not like Nolan doesn't know how to tell a compelling emotional story. So is it so hard to think that maybe that wasn't his goal with Tenet? Maybe he just wants to give audiences a mind-puzzling and thrilling experience they would never forget on the big screen. You cannot deny that Nolan does deliver on all cylinders, technically. The movie is beautifully shot, very well acted. In particular, the main trio of Washington, Pattinson, and Debicki are all fantastic. Its concept is executed well, and it's a very entertaining movie. Even though I may not have been following along the entire time, I can easily say that I was thoroughly entertained throughout. Look, here's how I see it. I like to think of Interstellar, Inception, and Tenet as Nolan's time trilogy. In my eyes, Interstellar is 80% emotional investment and plot and 20% concept. Inception is 50% emotional investment and plot, 50% concept. Tenet is 20% emotional investment, 80% concept. Each movie deals with different themes, all while utilizing different concepts to convey those themes. However, each film utilizes their concepts so perfectly visually that they all make for great movie watching experiences. Tenet is an experience like no other. It's a wild, sometimes confusing ride that you're taken on. It's 2.5 hours, but honestly, I would have liked more. Maybe even given an extra 15 minutes would have helped this film explain a few more things here and there, but overall, I'm still going to recommend this movie to anyone who's a fan of Nolan, or anyone who's a fan of original films. This is another issue that I have. People, especially average moviegoers, are so consistently complaining about how everything is a reboot or a sequel, and then when original movies like Tenet are released, they dump all over them for the reasons I said before. I would take a movie like Tenet, an original and unique premise and themes never explored on film before, any day over another reboot or sequel. But not every movie is going to be perfect. Not every movie is going to live up to your expectations of what it's going to be. You have to accept movies for what they are, and Tenet delivers on what it promises in a unique and original way, and I have nothing but respect for the people behind this movie who brought it to life amidst all the craziness, and no matter how absolutely bonkers this movie is. There's something to be said here, though, about a director who is so in over his head that he ruined his idea by trying to do too much. Many people call Nolan a pretentious filmmaker, and his actions and words towards streaming services and reopening of theaters truly did not help his image to the public either. I don't see it this way, and maybe I'm just blind to the fact that I can see this movie for what it is, and what I truly believe it was trying to be. One thing that I can agree with people on, though, is the sound mixing for this movie. I saw it at home and had the advantage of being able to hear what the characters were saying most of the time, but there were a few times where the dialogue was just simply too low on volume and everything else was cranked up to 100. This is another area where people pin Nolan as pretentious because he said on numerous occasions that his films are sound mixed purposefully, as to say that this is the way we're intended to hear the dialogue, which admittedly is kind of frustrating when dealing with a movie that has such complex plot and characters and you're trying to figure things out by exposition that you sometimes just can't hear. People also said they had the same issues with Interstellar. Personally, I didn't, but I found those issues much more evident in Tenet. I also cannot talk about Tenet without talking about the mesmerizing score by Ludwig Göransson. Holy crap, when this movie was announced, there was talk that Hans Zimmer would not be able to score it because he was working on Dune. Now, Hans Zimmer and Nolan are like a cinematic dynamic duo, kind of like Spielberg and John Williams, so audiences were hesitant to see what Ludwig would bring to the table. There was a part of me that would still like to see how Hans Zimmer's take on the score for Tenet would have been, but Ludwig absolutely knocks it out of the park. He hits just the right tone for every scene, and the movie has this techno offbeat sound to it that is just so oddly pleasant to listen to. The score during the opening scene is heart-pumping and it's just so good. The use of electronic sounds and instruments mixed with the loud thuds of bass guitars and drums, with hard-hitting hi-hats and snares, and dark, ominous synth noises. Man, it's fantastic. Honestly, rewatch this movie and tell me that the score doesn't elevate every single scene. The fire truck heist scene features the loudest and wildest sounds I've ever heard in a movie when the beat kicks in and the melody sounds like an inverted fire truck siren. It's truly a fantastic score. There are even sections of the score where the music and sounds are inverted, following along with the times in the movie where the scene and time is actually inverted, and it all sounds so unique and interesting. Ludwig also scored The Mandalorian and Black Panther, and with Tenet, he has proven himself to be the real deal. So do not be surprised if we see more of him in the future. This guy is fantastic. Well, that's all I've got to say about Tenet. The movie was made on a budget of $200 million and only grossed about $360 million. That's about half of what Interstellar grossed and a third of what The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises grossed. Sadly, Nolan's push to get his film out in theaters so early may have bit him in the foot. It's not a bad showing whatsoever, but slightly disappointing given the epic nature of this film. It would have been nicer for it to have done better. Had Nolan possibly waited until more vaccines started rolling out and more restrictions eased up, Tenet could have been 2021 summer blockbuster, smashing box office records, as people had been eagerly waiting for it and were excited to go back into theaters. The timing and all the controversy of his comments near release definitely hurt the reception of this movie, and of Nolan in general, in my opinion, but Nolan has got nothing to worry about. He put his vision to life on the big screen and brought us one of the most original, entertaining movies in years. I cannot wait to see what Nolan does next as he adds to his legendary filmography. Here's hoping that the next Nolan film I see will be in the cinema. Thank you for listening to my in-depth discussion and review of Tenet. The Film Ignite podcast is meant to ignite discussion on all things film and TV, so let me hear your thoughts. What did you think of Tenet? And what are your opinions on Nolan in general? Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time.